You get upset and they call you crazy. You try to speak and they smirk. You finally explode and they go calm. You cry and they take notes. You defend yourself and they act wounded. You walk away and they follow you with a soft voice that sounds like innocence. You keep thinking you're communicating, but you're actually broadcasting. You are an open book, and they are reading you for sport. You have been giving away your soul to people who study your reactions just to use them against you. Your facial expressions and your tears are currency to a manipulator. Your anger is their proof. Your empathy is their entry point. Your need to be understood is the leash around your throat, but there is a stage of psychological evolution so dark, so impenetrable, that it terrifies anyone who tries to control you. Carl Jung called it the integration of the shadow. We call it the unreadable phase. Watch closely, because when you master this, they won't be able to break you even if they know every story you've ever told. Here's what society never told you about dark psychology. Manipulators don't win by being stronger than you. They win by getting you to reveal yourself. They win through access to your emotional control system. They win through power dynamics that you accidentally fund with your face, your tone, your timing, your explanations, your guilt. And now we answer the forbidden question you've been scared to believe. What if the numbness you feel inside isn't depression, but your psyche building a fortress that they can no longer penetrate? What if that blankness is not you dying, but you evolving? In the next minutes, you're going to learn what the unreadable phase actually is, how Carl Jung shadow integration turns your exhaustion into armor, how shadow work creates a new kind of emotional control, and how manipulation defense becomes effortless. When you stop giving predators a signal to feed on, you will learn the difference between petty silence and true unreadability. You will learn what happens when they try to crack you, and you will learn the final severing that makes you psychologically untouchable. If these ideas resonate with you, hit that subscribe button for more top-tier content. Also, drop a show nothing in the comments so I know you're ready. Let's dive in. Your face is broadcasting your weaknesses to predators 24/7. You think you're hiding it, but you're not. You think you're staying calm, but your micro-expressions are leaking. You think you're being rational, but your eyes are begging to be understood. You think your silence is strength, but your jaw is clenched like a confession. You think you're composed, but your shoulders are telling the truth you won't say out loud. And they see it. In toxic relationships, whether it's a covert narcissist, a passive-aggressive friend, a partner who breadcrumbed you, or a co-worker who triggers you for entertainment, your emotions are not private. Your emotions are their map. Your emotions are how they measure how much control they still have. This is the first humiliating recognition. You don't lose the argument because your logic is wrong. You lose because your nervous system gives them a weapon. You get louder and they get calmer. You get emotional and they get reasonable. You show pain and they show concern. You react and they label you unstable. And now the room, your family, your friends, the group chat, the co-worker circle, sees you as the problem. That's not accidental. That's the tactic. Power dynamics favor the person who looks least affected, not because they are right, but because they appear sovereign. And manipulators understand this instinctively. They provoke you until you display emotion, then they step back and let the social world punish you for being human. You've lived it. You felt that moment when you realize you've been baited, when you hear your own voice rising and you can't stop. You felt your own anger betray you. You felt yourself become the crazy one in a story they wrote before the conversation even began. So let's get brutally precise. The goal is not to win their respect. The goal is to become unreadable, because the moment you become unreadable, you stop being programmable. A manipulator fears silence more than they fear anger. Anger is predictable. Anger is useful. Anger gives them data. Anger gives them material. Anger gives them a reason to play the victim. Anger gives them a narrative. But unreadability gives them nothing. And here's the truth you've needed permission to accept. You are not broken because you feel numb. Your psyche is building a shield. Your numbness is not your enemy. Your numbness is your nervous system refusing to keep donating electricity to a person who enjoys shocking you. This is why dark psychology matters. It isn't about becoming mean, it's about becoming unexploitable. But going quiet isn't enough. Your micro-expressions are betraying you. Here is how to kill them. Manipulators calibrate you the way a thief tests a door. They don't start with force. They start with pressure. They start with a comment, a delay, a joke, a little disrespect wrapped in plausible deniability. They watch your reaction, then they escalate. They test your boundaries to see if they exist. They test your self-respect to see if it's real. They test your emotional control to see if it's yours or theirs. They test your guilt to see if it's a handle. And every time you explain yourself, you reward the test with attention. Let this land. The moment you stop caring if they understand you, they lose all leverage. Because what they want is not clarity. What they want is engagement. They want you in the arena. They want you chasing fairness, chasing closure, chasing the right words, chasing the day they finally admit you were right. They want you investing. You think your empathy is your virtue. In the wrong hands, empathy becomes your self-destruction. Jung discovered that empathy given to a parasite is a form of self-destruction. That doesn't mean you become heartless. It means you become selective. It means you stop feeding empathy into a system that converts it into control. So you begin with a cold audit of your patterns. You give them facial expressions. You give them tone. You give them long messages. You give them immediate replies. You give them your schedule. You give them your sleep. You give them your appetite. You give them your peace. And then you wonder why you feel hollow. Your psyche doesn't feel hollow because you're weak. Your psyche feels hollow because it's finally refusing to perform. Here's the dark psychology behind why this phase scares them. When you are readable, you are steerable. When you are unreadable, they must guess. And guessing makes them anxious. Guessing makes them reveal themselves. Guessing makes them overplay their hand. When you become unreadable, you force the manipulator to reveal their own hand. You've seen it. The moment you stop reacting, they start pushing harder. The moment you don't answer, they send another message. The moment you don't defend yourself, they raise the accusation. The moment you don't chase, they manufacture urgency. That escalation is not love. It's loss of control. And this is where most people misunderstand emotional control. Emotional control is not staying polite. Emotional control is the ability to feel the heat and not leak information. You don't suppress emotion to look strong. You contain emotion to stay sovereign. Because every visible crack becomes a place they push a blade. Now you might ask, so what do I do? Just become cold? Just do the grey rock method? Just act bored? You can mimic the grey rock method and still be owned. Because there is a massive difference between the silent treatment and true psychological unreadability. The silent treatment is a tantrum with no words. It's punishment disguised as maturity. It's a performance designed to get a reaction. True unreadability is different. Unreadability is not a tactic you do to them. Unreadability is a state you become for you. The silent treatment says, I'm withholding until you change. The unreadable phase says, I am no longer available to this game. The silent treatment is emotional. The unreadable phase is strategic. The silent treatment is still attachment. The unreadable phase is detachment. This is where Carl Jung's shadow work becomes a weapon, because unreadability is not just behavior. It's identity, it's shadow integration. It's the part of you that stops begging to be seen as good. It's the part of you that stops needing permission to protect yourself. It's the part of you that stops explaining your boundaries like they're a courtroom argument. And yes, it will feel dark at first, because you were trained to believe that being emotionally accessible is love, and being emotionally detached is cruel. But in power dynamics, emotional accessibility without discernment is how predators eat. So you reframe the numbness. You stop calling it depression. You stop calling it emptiness. You stop calling it something wrong with you. You call it what it is, an internal firewall. And now answer this for yourself, not for them. What if your psyche is building a fortress that they can no longer penetrate? What if your exhaustion is your mind refusing to keep bleeding for people who enjoy the sight? What if your numbness is the first honest boundary you've ever had? Now we go deeper, because Jung didn't tell you to become unreadable by acting unreadable. He told you to integrate the shadow, so your unreadability becomes natural, not forced. Carl Jung observed that when you integrate this part of your shadow, your physical aura actually changes. Your posture changes, your eye contact changes, your timing changes. Your face stops begging, your voice stops pleading, not because you learned a trick, because you stopped negotiating your worth. And when that happens, manipulators don't just get bored, they panic. When you do this correctly, watch their eyes. You will see true panic. Because the eyes are where they look for a reaction, and when they find nothing, they realize they can't steer you anymore. But you must be ready for what happens next, because the moment you enter the unreadable phase, they will try one specific trick to crack your shell. Be ready for it. Jung's point is simple and brutal. What you refuse to accept in yourself will be used against you. If you refuse your anger, you become controllable through provocation. If you refuse your selfishness, you become exploitable through guilt. If you refuse your coldness, you become enslaved through empathy. If you refuse your capacity to leave, you become trapped by attachment. That's why his quote is a warning. When you know your own shadow, you become immune to the shadows of others. So what is your shadow in this story? Your shadow is the part of you that can disappoint people without collapsing. Your shadow is the part of you that can be misunderstood and still sleep. Your shadow is the part of you that can say nothing and not explain. Your shadow is the part of you that can walk away without a goodbye speech. Your shadow is the part of you that can feel anger and not leak it. Shadow work is not healing vibes. Shadow work is reclaiming the parts of you that predators used to control you. Because manipulators don't control you through strength. They control you through your disowned traits. They control you through your need to be the good one. They control you through your fear of being seen as cold. They control you through your fear of being alone. They control you through your fear of conflict. They control you through your fear of becoming like them. So let's surgically remove the last fear. Becoming unreadable does not make you abusive. It makes you protected. You are not becoming a predator. You are becoming non-prey. And now the trick they use to crack your shell, the one you must anticipate, is moral inversion. They will try to make your boundary look like an attack. They will try to make your silence look like cruelty. They will try to make your detachment look like you changed. They will try to make your emotional control look like you don't care. They will try to make your self-respect look like arrogance. They will try to trigger your guilt, because guilt is how they reopen the door. And if you take the bait, if you explain, defend, justify, you become readable again. So your response is simple. You show nothing. You don't correct them. You don't educate them. You don't plead your case. You don't try to be understood by a person committed to misunderstanding you. You let them have their story. Because here's the law of power dynamics. Your peace is worth more than your reputation in the mouth of someone who benefits from your pain. Now, implement this next part precisely, because it's the difference between going quiet and becoming unreadable at the nervous system level. You slow down your responses, you reduce your words, you neutralize your tone, you flatten your face, you remove emotional punctuation, you stop volunteering information, you stop oversharing your inner world, you stop giving them the map. You don't glare, you don't smile to soothe, you don't frown to protest, you don't roll your eyes to signal contempt. You become the blank slate. That's emotional control. Not because you're numb, because you're disciplined, but the extinction burst is the most dangerous part of this process. If you break here, you lose everything. So now we talk about the storm that comes when your unreadability starts working. The moment you stop giving them reactions, they don't calmly accept it. They escalate. This is called the extinction burst. When a behavior that used to work suddenly stops producing results, the person intensifies the behavior in a final attempt to regain control. So expect it. Expect them to provoke harder. Expect them to get louder. Expect them to get sweeter. Expect them to get meaner. Expect them to bait you with accusations. Expect them to bait you with nostalgia. Expect them to bait you with a crisis. Expect them to bait you with, "I'm sorry." Expect them to bait you with, "You're the only one who understands me." Expect them to bait you with, "You're heartless." And here's your test. Will you react to the escalation, or will you maintain the blank? A manipulator fears silence more than they fear anger, because anger still proves they matter. Silence, true silence, proves they don't. So you hold the line. You do not get pulled into the courtroom. You do not get pulled into the debate. You do not get pulled into the "prove you care" trap. You do not get pulled into the "why are you like this" interrogation. You do not get pulled into the emotional hostage situation. You become the psychological mirror that gives them absolute zero. This is where manipulation defense becomes effortless. You don't out-argue them. You out-withhold them. You don't defeat them with words. You defeat them with absence. Absence of reaction, absence of explanation, absence of emotional labor. And then something flips. They start to reveal their own instability, because when you stop performing, they have to perform alone. When you stop reacting, they have to generate drama without fuel. When you stop chasing, they have to face the silence they created. When you remove your emotional supply, you force them to sit with themselves. And that's when you see it. The mask slips. You will know you have reached this phase when this exact thought crosses your mind. I don't care if you understand me. Not because you're apathetic to life, because you're finally loyal to your life. And now we hit the final secret, because the unreadable phase is not complete until you sever the one attachment you hold most dear. It's not your attachment to them. It's your attachment to being seen as a good person by them. The final severing is this. You stop trying to be the hero in a villain's story. You stop needing them to approve your boundary. You stop needing them to validate your pain. You stop needing them to admit what they did. You stop needing them to feel guilt. You stop needing them to change, because the moment you stop needing anything from them, you become unbreakable. You are not broken because you feel numb. Your psyche is building a shield. Now we close the loop and turn this into invincibility. So you don't just survive manipulators, you become unreadable to them forever. You become a dead end. You become the calm wall. You become the person whose eyes reveal nothing. You become the person they cannot figure out, cannot hook, cannot guilt, cannot provoke, cannot destabilize. That is the unreadable phase. And it doesn't make you less human, it makes you less harvestable. So let's synthesize what you just became. You were betrayed by people who played your emotions like an instrument. You recognized the pattern. Your reactions were currency. You felt the anger, because anger is the immune system waking up. You were validated. You were not crazy. You were being engineered. You were given permission. Your numbness is not weakness. It is protection. You weaponized it through shadow work, through emotional control, through disciplined neutrality. And now you step into invincibility, the unreadable phase as a permanent psychological fortress. Let them search your eyes and find absolutely nothing. Drop "show nothing" in the comments if you're entering the unreadable phase and you're done broadcasting your weaknesses. Subscribe for the next level, because this isn't therapy talk. This is dark psychology with teeth. This is Carl Jung shadow work turned into real-world manipulation defense. This is power dynamics explained in a way you can actually use the next time a covert narcissist tries to bait you, the next time a toxic relationship tries to pull you back, the next time someone tries to make you look unstable while they stay calm. This is an alliance of silent strategists, people who stop reacting, stop begging for understanding, and start moving like sovereign minds. If you want to know the 5 laws to ruthlessly preserve yourself once you've gone blank, click the video on screen. See what others miss. Know what others fear. Become who others can't.